The massive steel teeth of a Caterpillar front-end loader scrape against the asphalt of Jaffa Road, dragging twisted metal beneath its tracks. A white van crumples like paper as the 20-ton machine pushes forward, lifting a silver Chevrolet into the air before sending it crashing onto its side. The sound of screeching metal echoes through Jerusalem's bustling streets as pedestrians scatter in all directions. On this clear afternoon of July 2, 2008, terror grips the heart of the city. Through the glass windows of the Israel Broadcasting Authority building, dozens of journalists witness the unfolding chaos. Camera operators and reporters pour onto the street, their equipment at the ready, capturing every moment as the bulldozer carves its path of destruction. A security guard raises his weapon, firing several rounds. The massive machine shudders to a halt, smoke rising from its engine. For 3 seconds, silence falls over Jaffa Road. Then, with a mechanical roar, the engine surges back to life. On July 2, 2008, around midday, citizens on one of Jerusalem's busiest streets noticed a massive Caterpillar front-end loader rolling out from a nearby construction site. For a brief moment, the shocking move looked like an ordinary work vehicle on the move. But as it veered onto Jaffa Road, it smashed through the driver's side cabin of a small white van and flipped a silver Chevrolet onto its side. Then, a chilling realization hit. This was a deliberate attack. At the controls was 30-year-old Hussam Taysir Duyat, a Palestinian construction worker intent on a violent rampage through the heart of West Jerusalem. Soon after, the vehicle began to plow through the streets. According to apartment security guard Yuri Gudkovich, people started running for cover into stores and buildings. Meanwhile, a crowd of shocked passers-by also began to chase the loader, all desperate for a way to stop the massive vehicle, no matter the cost. Continuing along Jaffa Road, Duyat drove the 20-ton earth-moving vehicle, rolling over cars and trying to crush anything or anyone in his path. Steering against traffic, the driver used the loader's mechanical shovel to overturn a public transportation bus near the city's central bus station, flipping it on its side, hitting other nearby vehicles and pedestrians, leaving behind a swath of tangled wreckage about 300 yards long. After this, the deranged bulldozer continued to mow into several other cars and collided with a second bus. Terrified spectator and transportation worker Moshe Oren stated he looked into the face of the driver, and recalling, "It's hard to define, but he also seemed cool-headed. He looked crazy and calculated at the same time." By then, it was clear to nearby police that the driver was heading straight toward the city's most prominent and busiest open-air market, an area packed with hundreds of shoppers, vendors, and families alike filling the crowded streets and stalls. Unless someone intervened, disaster was only seconds away. With the rampage taking place directly below the windows of an office block housing several international television networks, dozens of journalists were right on the scene. One of them, BBC correspondent Tim Franks, reported that within just a few seconds, the once bustling stretch of the city center had been transformed into a scene of chaos, with debris scattered and vehicles overturned amidst the stunned reactions of onlookers. The journalist ran into the street, where the bulldozer had left cars and taxis skewed across the road. He saw drivers and passengers trapped in their crushed cars. By then, he'd dragged the machine for a total of 1,640 feet. Despite more than one security personnel member attempting to stop the driver, police officials in the vicinity were convinced there was only one way to stop him. Just then, a security guard from a nearby bank shot at the driver, bringing it to a sudden halt. However, dramatic television footage captured the vehicle suddenly lurching back to life. The streets around it had transformed into a trail of overturned cars and debris in seconds, with a wholly flattened car beneath the machine. At that moment, 4 determined men, a policeman, an off-duty soldier, an armed civilian, and a special forces officer, climbed right onto the bulldozer. Inside the cab, a tense struggle unfolded. The armed civilian fought to reach the driver's controls, brazenly attempting to get Duyat's foot off the accelerator to stop the massive machine's forward push. As the two wrestled for control, he shouted to the soldier for backup, who rapidly took hold of the civilian's handgun, aimed, and fired, bringing the desperate situation to a definitive halt. Only seconds later, a special anti-terrorism officer arrived on the scene, dismounting his motorcycle and climbing into the cab, adding a final layer of safety to prevent any further threat. From beginning to end, the July 2008 Jerusalem bulldozer attack had spanned just over 5 minutes. Remarkably, the dramatic moments in which the perpetrator was stopped were captured from many different angles, thanks to the area's proximity to several media offices, leading to multi-layered and extensive footage of the final moments of this chaotic attack. According to police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld, there is no doubt at all that this was a terrorist attack. Following the terrifying incident, more than 40 people were rushed to the hospital, where, tragically, 2 men and a woman later succumbed to their injuries. A day later, then Prime Minister Ehud Olmert condemned the events as a senseless act of violence meant to disrupt peace negotiations and urged a restrained response from Israel. Authorities investigating the driver's motivations concluded he had acted alone. While Hamas, the Palestinian Islamist group controlling Gaza and maintaining a fragile truce with Israel, denied involvement, a spokesperson asserted that it was a natural response to continued aggression against our people in the West Bank and Jerusalem. Back at Duwiat's family home in East Jerusalem, there was none of the typical public fanfare often seen at funerals for Palestinian militants. Yet, a day after the attack, authorities approved the demolition of his house, intended as a deterrent to future incidents, a move not enacted in years. During the investigation, neighbors and relatives alike revealed Duwiat's personal problems, including past drug abuse issues, including one neighbor who said he was really just a junkie. His family's lawyer, Shimon Kokos, stated that he was unaffiliated with any militant organization and may have acted out of temporary insanity, and that, had his life not ended during his rampage, it is doubtful whether he would have been judged fit to stand trial. Meanwhile, Duwiat's father stated, "My son never spoke of plans to carry out such an attack. If he had, I would have tried to prevent it." On July 22nd, another East Jerusalem Arab resident, Ghassan Abu Tir, rammed his bulldozer into cars and a bus on King David Street, wounding 24 people. Avi Levi, the bus driver harmed by the digger, recalled, "I was driving on the main road when it hit me in the rear, on the right-hand side. After I passed him, he turned round, made a U-turn, and rammed the windows twice with the shovel. The third time he aimed for my head, he came up to my window and I swerved to the right. Otherwise, I would have gone to meet my maker." Like Duwiat, gunfire from a border policeman and an armed pedestrian ended the rampage, with at least a dozen bullet holes in the door of the digger by the time the machine stopped. The attack was seen as a copycat act of the July 2nd attack, causing fears of an emerging new terrorist tactic of vehicle ramming attacks. The second incident happened just yards away from the King David Hotel, where the American Democratic presidential nominee Barack Obama was due to stay as part of a carefully watched visit to Israel and the West Bank. Following the two incidents in less than a month, for the rest of the decade, Palestinian and Jewish bulldozer drivers alike lived in fear of being mistaken for attackers. According to a Palestinian driver only identified by the name Anas, people have developed bulldozer phobia. It is better to start looking for a new career. Bulldozers are a common sight across Jerusalem, where ongoing construction projects like the light rail system were taking shape in the late 2000s. Yet, for many Palestinians, these vehicles have come to symbolize Israeli occupation, as the military frequently uses them in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank. For years, human rights activists have lobbied the Caterpillar company to stop selling its heavy machinery to the Israeli military, citing concerns over the use of these vehicles to demolish Palestinian homes, uproot orchards, and build settlements on occupied land. As Palestinian analyst Hani al-Masri said, now the Palestinians are trying to fight the occupation by using its very tools.